Hi, I'm Tiffany, and this is Towering TBR. Today I am joining you to do the Sandman Tag. I just recently finished season 1 of the Sandman adaptation on Netflix, and I loved it. While I'm a fan of Neil Gaiman, I was hesitant to get into the Sandman because of the horror and gore that I thought might be associated with it. And while there is some of that, I found the story just to be so compelling and the characters so rich. So, I will link the original BookTube goddess who started this tag down in the description below, as well as the questions in case you want to do the tag yourself. So, she based the questions off of all of the endless characters. So the first is Destiny. What book or character do you think reflects your life? This was hard for me because I kind of think of my life as a little bit boring and awkward and, I don't know, not something you typically read about. But then I remembered Ali Brosh's Solutions and Other Problems. This is her graphic memoir, and she's kind of like me. She's got anxiety. She sometimes lets her imagination get away with her, and I just found myself really relating to this book and felt like this was a really good answer for this question. The second is death. What book has presented death or dying to you in a way that was unexpected to you? And for that, I picked All the Young Men by Ruth Coker Burks. This is her real-life story of helping men diagnosed with HIV and AIDS in the 80s and 90s. And I think she had to kind of numb herself to the pain of losing these people. It was a real epidemic, and people died. So many people died, and she had to numb herself and keep going. And she would talk about, oh, okay, do they have any medication left? Maybe we can give it to somebody who needs it and is still alive. And yeah, I think that really presented death in a different way than I had thought about it before. Typically, when I read about death, it's this tragic and slow death and people missing them and their lives basically stopping because of the grief. And with her, she just had to keep going. There was too many people to help. She couldn't get bogged down every time someone died. She couldn't just lose herself. And I think in a way that made these deaths even more horrific. They didn't have time to grieve and mourn. They just had to keep going. And this is an amazing book. And it is hard, but I highly recommend this. Dream. What book is like a dream or nightmare? I picked the graphic memoir Grass by Kim Suk-gendry Kim. This was telling the real-life story of Korean women who were sold into sexual slavery when Korea and Japan were in a war. They were called comfort women, and they had to attend to the sexual needs of the Japanese soldiers. The story was horrific and saddening, and when the comfort women got STDs, they had to bleach their very intimate parts, which caused chemical burns on what are very sensitive places. And they were just stuck like that for years in this horrible situation. And to me, I think that sounds like a nightmare, and it's even more nightmarish because it happened. Prodigal. What is your favorite book about a prodigal character? So when the BookTube goddess did this, she defined prodigal as a person who leaves their home to go on a journey and then comes back. But when I looked it up, it talked about a person being incredibly flashy and lavish and extravagant with their money to the point of like just making really bad financial decisions. And while I don't read about many characters like that, I realized Elton John's memoir called Me, he is incredibly lavish and prodigal. He has whole rooms dedicated with art and other expensive bric-a-brac that he just felt he had to have. And yeah, I think I've never read about a character who was more lavish than Elton John himself. Desire. What is the sexiest book you've ever read? I decided to choose Get a Life, Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert. I don't read a lot of romance. Partly because I feel like their problems are incredibly contrived, and I don't like reading about a situation that gets drawn out just because they won't communicate. But I really actually enjoyed this story because the main character, Chloe, has fibromyalgia, and that contributes real problems in her life. And her love interest, Red, was in a domestic violence situation. And so he has some baggage and some trust issues as well. And I felt like it just felt real and authentic. And I will say Talia Hibbert writes some very steamy scenes. They had quite a bit of chemistry and probably one of the sexiest books I've ever read. Despair. What is the most depressing book you've ever read? Well, I could talk about Grass again because that's incredibly depressing. I decided to pick a different book. Behind the Beautiful Forevers by Catherine Boo. She is a journalist who embedded herself in this slum in Mumbai and got to know and gained the trust of the people living there. She details them living in literal garbage heaps. She talks about how the water, they have to wait in line for hours and it's not even clean. Girls are not allowed to go to school. I mean, it's just a depressing situation. And throughout it, the politicians are wanting to destroy this area and because it's near the Mumbai airport and they don't want tourists to see the filth and poverty that some of their citizens live like. And it's a really depressing read, but incredibly, it made me realize how lucky we are to have clean water, to have safe shelter, to have so much that we take for granted. The last question is Delirium. What is the most absurd or nonsensical book you've ever read? And for me, I decided to pick Furiously Happy by Jenny Lawson. Jenny Lawson is hilarious and a very skilled writer, but she will take a completely ridiculous and absurd thought and work her way through how she got there. In one of her books, I'm not sure if it's this one, although this one is my favorite, she talks about how Jesus was technically a zombie and says a lot of outlandish and funny things. And I swear it is her best book, but it is also quite absurd, and I really love it. So those were all 7 of the questions. If you'd like to do this tag, please consider yourself tagged and go ahead and do it. Have you guys watched the adaptation? Have you read the comics or the audio play? Let me know down in the comments below. Bye.